Well, we are back after another long weekend of seething and recovery, and it's time to get ready for the next opponent this weekend. We're taking on the Virginia Cavaliers. Myself, Vince Lococo, and Matt McGavic are going to dive in, preview that, and we got some Matt stats mixed in for you as well. Let's get this train out the station, shall we? This is a momentum-shifting game. Can you finally get off the mat after getting your butt kicked 2 weeks in a row? Hello and welcome to another episode of From the Pink Seats podcast on the State of Louisville Podcast Network. Producer Keith on the ones and twos tonight. With me, as always, Vince Lococo, and joining us tonight, Matt McGavic, who's showing off his cell phone in the frame, and Vince, who's currently sweating out a Yankees and Royals playoff game.
This is rough. It's rough. I'm glad I'm here for your all's amusement. I mean, Matt's riding a high, hiring a new manager that everybody loves. I mean, I'm here for you guys. That's a great hire.
Let's go, Tito. I actually have hope for the future for the first time in my Reds fandom.
That's mistake number one, Matt.
You'll mess it up.
I know. We probably will.
Well, fellows, outside of a little bit of seething and anger, how's the weekends? How's everything been up to tonight, fellas?
Go ahead, Matt.
Well, I've gone through like the stages of grief. I've gotten past the what the fuck was that stage. I've now transitioned into how can this be fixed stage, and I don't know if that's going to transition into hope or more grief, but that's why we're here to talk about it.
At the end of the day, this is just one big counseling session. So
yeah. Therapy's expensive. Come hang out with us instead.
Exactly.
we're cheaper.
So, yeah. I'm getting the same questions here as I am from, when you're first talking to a girl and you get the same question that Louisville football's given us. What are we?
Jesus.
I mean, I hate it how great of a comparison that is. Just because now it's the what are we? You already know the answer to the question, but you don't want to have the uncomfortable conversation about it.
You know what else you already know?
What?
The sponsors of From the Pink Seats podcast are friends over at Underdog Fantasy. It's the greatest time of year. Football is back, and it is here to stay. It'll never leave us, at least until February. Over 1 million fans across 33 different states got in the game by making picks on Underdog Fantasy. So personally, I'm in the game as well. I have a little bit of optimism for the upcoming weekend. So the 3 picks I have for the Louisville-Virginia game this weekend, and might be a little sneak peek of what's coming in the episode. I have Tyler Shuck, lower than 0.5 interceptions. Ja'Cory Brooks, higher than 78.5 receiving yards. And Anthony Colandrea, higher than half a rushing/receiving touchdown. So making picks on Underdog is straightforward, and signing up is even easier. Just head on over to Underdog's simple-to-use mobile app or UnderdogFantasy.com and sign up with promo code PINKSEATS, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy. Promo code PINKSEATS to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. Must be 18 plus and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play. Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7-HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Thanks, Underdog Fantasy. What was that?
It said, is there any of those lines for football? I just have a football addiction. Just addicted to football.
Hey, man, there's a whole lot of football that you can find with our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. And I usually wait until a little bit later in the week to make some plays, but some of those I I'm feeling really confident
I'm
about. But
excited to start looking at their UFC lines and stuff like that and see what we can do with that.
see if you can get in the fight game, see what they've got over there. Yeah, there's a lot
Yeah.
of different ways to play. And remember, this isn't even part of the read anymore. Promo code Pink Seats. If we get to 10,000 subscribers, they hand deliver me $1 billion. I don't know the validity of that last part, but I'm choosing to believe it's true.
Hey, I would love
It
to
might
find
give you
out if
a-
it is true. Yeah, right.
All right. So now, Matt, in your stages of grief, I have not asked you yet because we didn't mention it in the intro. Can you officially close the book on the Mustangs? You don't even have the right Ford sponsoring your stadium. Come on, guys. So, on to a lighter note. Time for a
Yeah.
pick me up for me and Vince. You know it. You'll love it. It's time for some Matt stats.
These are the best.
All right, so I didn't really get too deep into the wood just because I mean I didn't really have to because Virginia is not great. They're good. They're improved from what they were last year, the last 2 seasons under what, Keith?
I got a working title. Now, we may have to work it out with the John Mayer camp, but should we call this episode Meet Virginia?
Jeez. I don't care. I don't like John Mayer.
Well,
I saw the light bulb come on, and I'm like, oh, I better ask what this is. It could be good. And now I regret asking.
And by me saying I don't like John Mayer, I might have a whole different type of hate comments in the comment section now. So
Leave a comment below if you love John Mayer and think Vince is tacky and you hate him.
He just
So-
sounds like Kid Rock, man.
Right, yeah. So just going through some of their like baseline Pro Football Focus stats, I was trying to look for some real outliers. I mean, and there were a couple. I mean, in terms of their receiving core, that's a 66.2 receiving grade, which is 86. Obviously not great. Rushing grade 76.1, which is 84th. Obviously not great. But then when you get to their offensive line, pass blocking 70.5, 54th. It's not bad. It's not great, but that's better. And then run blocking 76.5, which is 11th in the nation. And Virginia is not really a team that runs a lot per se, just kind of watching film on there and just seeing their baseline stats. But whenever they do choose to run, they can get some decent chunk yardage on the ground whenever they do choose to go that route. And then going over to the defense part, it's very odd because they're sound in one regard and very much not in another. Their tackle grade is 73.9, which is 29th, which is obviously very good. But their rushing defense, 66.2, which is 110th. Doesn't get much worse than that. I mean, it's bad, obviously, but it's not great. Which, I mean, Louisville doesn't really bode well in terms of like facing a defense like that because I mean their run game themselves isn't going too great. And then additionally, you look at like some of their baseline, just not even the non-advanced stats. Like I think the last time I checked, they were like 118th in passing defense. But looking at their coverage grade on Pro Football Focus, it's 82, which is 51st. Which again, not great, not terrible. So maybe there's something to their 118th rating being a little bit inflated. Perhaps could be. Not entirely sure there. I haven't watched a ton of Virginia. I watched a little bit of the Boston College game, but I other than that, I haven't really watched too much. Yeah, I know. Of course it did. So, and going a little bit more in depth, I want to talk a little bit about Anthony Colandrea. So he's their dual threat quarterback who's got a lot of upside, but in his freshman year last season, he was kind of turnover prone. But
the oopsie daisy king, to reference the Tom Fornelli metric that we bring up occasionally on the show. He was the oopsie daisy king last year.
He was, but he has gotten a lot better about just not being free and careless with the ball. In fact, of the FBS quarterbacks with at least 175 dropbacks, Anthony Colandrea is tied for the 6th fewest turnover-worthy plays at 4, and has the highest rated fumble grade at 77.8, which, I mean, that's good. In fact, he's actually tied for the fourth fewest fumbles among the 40 quarterbacks with at least 40 design rush attempts, just one. And something that I kind of picked up with Colandrea is that he's actually taking advantage of how well the offensive line has played. And I said it in the fact that he actually has the 14th highest time to throw at 2.88 seconds, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's actually an eternity when you watch it, when you watch the play out. Yeah, no, it's a long time. So either he's either putting way too much trust in his line or he's holding on to the ball way too long. So if there was ever a game for Louisville's pass rush to, finally have a game where they look good, this might be it. At least I would think so.
Just get home.
Yeah, I know. Get home. They're doing well in. I don't want to say well. They're doing okay in winning their one-on-one battles. It's just actually finishing the job they struggle. But anyways, we've talked a little bit about. I talked a little about their defensive grades, how they're kind of all over the place. As the totality of their unit, they're better than they were last year, but they're still not great per se. In fact, of the 16 players with at least 100 defensive snaps, just 5 have a 70 rating or better. So there's only a few guys kind of carrying the defensive effort, and everyone else is just kind of average, to say the least. And another big, maybe not big, but underrated storyline heading into this game this weekend is the fact that Antonio Clary, their starting safety and actually their leading tackler, I believe at 48 tackles, he's likely going to be out of this game because of a knee injury that he suffered against Boston College. And to put it in perspective, he's got the second highest defensive rating at 77. He's got the highest run defense grade at 86.2, and this is within Virginia's team. And he's got the highest tackle rating at 81. So he is an important component of this Virginia defense, a defense that doesn't have a lot of star power per se. It has what's star adjacent,
pieces, good pieces.
Pieces.
A good college football unit.
Yeah, I guess that's the way to put it. So them missing their leading tackler and someone who the advanced metrics love is a big deal, and that's something that Louisville, considering they've done well in spurts with their offense, especially with their passing offense. This is something that they should absolutely take advantage of.
That is really interesting to note. Some of those stats that jumped out to me, and I'll try to reach back for them during the course of the conversation. So let's sort of move into the preview of Virginia. So let's meet Virginia, currently 4-1 on the season, winning record, currently on track to have a pretty darn good shot at making a bowl game, which with the amount of tragedy and heartache that program has had over the last couple of years,
yeah,
it would do the heart
for sure.
It'd do the heart good to see the Who's get a little bit of success. Just hopefully not against us.
Just not against us.
Yeah.
So 4-1 on the year, and their only loss on the season so far was against Maryland. And that was a weird game where they lost the turnover battle 4-0. So turn the ball over 4 times. I know one time was in the red zone and if it had happened to my team, I would have, I would have been taking a long walk on a pier or on a bridge somewhere, just needing to clear my head. Or as Mike Rutherford said, it would have been time to go for a drive turnover. So it was a play. Colandrea steps up.
Could use that.
Yeah. Colandrea steps up into the pocket, and then he starts to roll out right to buy some time. And the offensive tackle is finishing off a block. And he's falling onto a dude, finishing off the block. And one of his back legs flares up and kicks the ball out of Colandrea's hands as he's scrambling. And this is on a 3rd and goal. Kicks the ball out of his quarterback's hands, and Maryland recovers. And it's that's at least a 3-point, if not a 7-point swing right there on a fluke leg. Like, I was
Yeah.
in the game prep, I was watching that. I'm like, did that just happen? Oh my God, that sucks. So the Maryland game, their only loss, and they kept it within 2 scores despite losing the turnover battle 4-0. Their wins are over Richmond, Wake Forest, Coastal Carolina, and like Matt had mentioned, their win over Boston College last week, which at the start of the season would have thought, yeah, Virginia getting a win over Boston College. That makes sense. Now it's like, oh shit, Virginia got a win over Boston College.
Yeah.
All right, good on you.
Yeah.
And
So
plus with their play in ACC play, something that really stood out to me is that they've actually been finishing games really well. Like they trailed both Wake and Boston College heading into the fourth quarter, and they actually outscored those two teams 32-0 in the final quarter to win both of those games. So this is not this is a Virginia team that has grown a lot because of all the adversity and all the losing that they've seen over the last 2 years under Tony Elliott, and it's starting to come to fruition for them. Now, granted, the schedule isn't super daunting, but being able to show fight late in the game, whenever you've basically just been a fledgling program for the last couple of years, like that's tangible progress, and I don't think you can ask much more from Virginia right now.
yeah, they're the one-liner. They're dangerous in the fourth quarter, like a dingleberry. Don't let them hang around.
Jesus. Yeah.
So
I'm gonna
we
drink my
talked a
beer
little.
now.
We talked a little bit about Tony Elliott. So on the offensive side of the ball, a general overview of what Virginia likes to do. They like to mix in tempo. They aren't a full foot on the gas, go, 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 go team like we saw with Rhett Lashley and SMU. Although I wouldn't even call them that up tempo, but they do a good job like mixing their play speeds. Like sometimes they'll huddle up, take some time, and then other times it's get on the line of scrimmage, let's go, 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 boom, 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 boom. So they do a good job keeping the defense off guard. I'm curious if the simplifications that Coach Brom talked about in his pressers throughout the weekend and the week, if those help us manage when they do break out that up-tempo scheme a little bit.
What I liked out of that presser was him saying all the guys playing the same call. I mean, you see these guys throwing their arms up and waving people over and it just looking dysfunctional pre-snap and everything. And that's where you see, in the Notre Dame game, that man coverage where both guys went for a bubble on the motion. It's like those two guys clearly were not on the same page. They have to. The common thing you hear in the defensive room a lot is if we're all playing the same call, we shouldn't have a whole lot of problems because we're all at least playing cover 4. We're all at least playing man coverage. We're all at least playing in cover 2. Everybody knows where they're going from a base standpoint, and him saying having a set call to play, in case of this up tempo situation is something interesting. I also, I don't know how I feel about that because it can become predictable. They'll definitely have to change it up.
You've
Because
led
if you go one high safety the whole time, then they're gonna know. I mean,
Mhm.
the smart football team. They're
It's the same thing that Vanderbilt did to Alabama this past weekend.
right,
Bama
exactly,
got too predictable on defense, and Vandy tore him up for it.
exactly. So I mean, there was some stuff in that presser that Coach Brom said that I took. I know we like to say he doesn't say a lot, but I definitely took a lot out of that presser.
So, Vince, say you're in the room and you're working on the defensive side of the ball and you've just been dysfunctional, sort of like our defense has. You have guys subbing in late, you have guys not running the same call. How bare bones do you get after a come to Jesus game like we had against Notre Dame combined with what we had against SMU?
I would just, like on the motions and things like that, stuff that can get confusing where, a 2-by-2 turns into a 3-by-1 all of a sudden, or, there's a tight end split out wide and now the tight end comes in and he's on the ball and you have a receiver who's now moved off the ball. I think, a lot of teams will change what they do in those situations. They'll be like, oh, wow, tight end is now on the ball, receiver off the ball now. We're checking to this. Instead, you might just see them, hey, play it out. Don't commit, just bump over, play it out, same way we would normally play it out. Everybody stay in their gaps and play fast. That's the thing, is just getting everybody to play fast. These moments where I've pointed out in the recap show of TJ Quinn and, some of these other players just staying in the same spot, that's, they're overthinking it. And when you're overthinking it, you're just not playing fast.
Yeah, and I'm going to take a subtle jab at some defensive players as a former offensive lineman. Not too many defensive players are the thinking men. They're the type that like to act on instincts.
Exactly, which is good. You want that a lot because, that means they're just flying around to the football. But, you have to be able to make some of these adjustments at the same time. It shouldn't be that confusing for the guys. I don't know. There might just be too much out there on the guys, whenever he's saying simplification, maybe just too much on them to check and to run. Maybe there's too much on the guys to call. Just let them run what they're in and let it ride. Unless it's a check with me type deal. Then if they're going to check and change something, then we're going to check and change something every single time. We're not just going to sit there in a one high safety if the team's over here checking, and we're not just going to sit there like some statues.
Yeah. So with Virginia's offense, and I knew they had a solid run game, and it's a very simple run game. Like, they don't do too much with it, but they simplify it, and what they do well. They have a tandem of really good running backs that we'll talk about later, with an O-line that grades as highly as it does in the run game as Virginia does. And then when they do decide to pass the ball, what I noticed in the games that I watched, this isn't a team that likes to dink and dunk and try to just run like a West Coast death by 1,000 paper cut sort of thing. They like to take shots downfield. I jokingly call it the Joe Flacco offense. Just throw it deep to your best player. If you can't catch it, try to draw a pass interference.
Right. That's where the simplification and stuff, that could come in handy right there, because the big plays, you saw it twice in the Notre Dame game where guys didn't know what they were doing pre-snap, which caused a post-snap issue. So, oversimplify the stuff, which should and hopefully eliminate these big plays that are happening, at least in the secondary.
Yeah, and we're going against, as much as we like Anthony Colandrea, and I think everyone on the show likes Colandrea's game, he's a sophomore.
I like our quarterback. I like nobody else.
Well, in today's day and age, he could be our quarterback with time. But he's a sophomore, so you don't necessarily have to scheme up the craziest defensive looks to confuse a kid like that. So I'm hoping that with some of the simplification, our defense can play faster and be more aggressive.
What I wouldn't mind seeing them do is scheme something up for Ashton Gelati to get home early. Because if Colandrea is thinking Ashton's is going to be getting home all day, sometime early in the first quarter, then that's something a sophomore quarterback would definitely be worried about for the entirety of the game.
So one thing I'm kind of surprised I haven't seen more this year is just intentionally putting Ashton on the quarterback's rollout side, if that makes sense. So if we're playing a right-handed quarterback, so force them to sprint out where their shoulders aren't facing downfield. So if they do escape the pocket, they have to then do the awkward full turn to try and get a throw downfield. I'd maybe see some movement around on the line to try and get some personnel in better positions to be disruptive. But all in all, though, Matt, what did you think of the Virginia offense when you gave it a watch?
It's one that, they do like to take a lot of deep shots, but you mentioned that running game. It's not explosive. It's not terrible, but it's one that keeps the offense on schedule. And I think that's the biggest difference, is because Virginia had a guy in, was it Mike Hollins or something along those lines last year's? They had a decent back last year, but he was fine. He wasn't good, wasn't great. He was just okay, but he wasn't someone who would help them regularly stay on schedule. And now with like the assistance of Xavier Brown and Kobe Pace, like guys who are doing very, very well. Again, not great, but doing very well and helping do enough to where like teams have to take them into account. And so that's leaving more opportunities for a guy like Malachi Fields to really make plays, and he's been fantastic for him. I mean, he's not a Malik Washington type like they had like a couple years ago, but he's pretty good. And honestly, with and this is a game where I think Chris Tyree might not play very much just because I think he's banged up and they're actually kind of thin at receiver outside of Fields because I'm pretty sure Trell Harris is kind of like questionable now, who's their second leading receiver. So this is a game where the defense, when it comes to like the passing game, outside of having to take into account Tyler Neville, the really good tight end, like they could probably use this game to try and just find Malachi Fields and double him the entire time because he's their biggest threat, and two, you're not going to have very many guys there who are serious threats to really hurt you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Vince, you get a chance to get any advanced scout on UVA? Any other thoughts that we haven't really touched on already?
Yeah, nothing that you guys haven't already talked about. I mean, I'm just anxious to see how we show up, guys. I mean, I know we're about to get into it. So,
guys who do show up, the University of Virginia defense, those guys, bona fide thumpers. Like those guys come to hit. Like they're a team after my own heart. It's like if you put 11 Cameron Kellys on the field, just all of them are looking to blow a dude up all the time, and I love it.
Usually you get bad tackling with that stuff, and that doesn't seem to be the case for them at all.
No, like they've been pretty solid on the year. Matt, I can't remember what your number was, but they graded highly in.
It's a 73.9 tackle grade, which is good for 29th in the nation. So yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, good form, fundamental hitters. As a unit, they've got 10 sacks through 5 games. And one of the numbers that I was kind of impressed, 5 forced fumbles. So they're pacing out to force a fumble a game. So 2 hands on the ball this week, please. Like I believe we've only had a fumble in the Notre Dame game, and I'd like to keep it that way.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, and what I would like to see is, I mean, I just want to see Isaac Brown get more carries, if I'm being honest with you guys. Like this against this defense, Matt, you mentioned like this could be a game. Louisville, this if there's ever a game, this is the one to come back and take full advantage of the run, and the offensive line needs to definitely establish the point of attack and dominate the front.
So that was one of the things I also wanted to come back to, Matt, in your stats segment that surprised me because I didn't realize their grading was that bad against the run. And from the games that I watched, I didn't realize they were graded that good in the secondary because in my notes, I had like Georgia Tech, like SMU, guys get open against this secondary. Now, they haven't played teams with the quarterbacks to hit them with any regularity, but the guys are there. And that's why I was so big on like, oh, yeah, Shucks got that rapport with Ja'Cory Brooks, and he's established himself as a bona fide dude. So we can –
Go ahead, Keith. Go ahead.
I was going to say, if this just screams to me like 200-yard game for Ja'Cory Brooks, if we can give Shuck time to get the ball to him.
What bothered me last week, and what I hope doesn't bother me this week, is we continue to talk about Ja'Cory as the stud, and he is definitely the stud, but we have other guys that we can get the ball to, like down the field, not just laterally. Like Colin Lacey needs to be given the ball more down the field. Same with Chris Bell. Chris Bell needs more targets. Jamari Johnson needs more targets. We should be getting I'd say Chris Redmond. Mark Redmond. We should be getting Mark Redmond the ball more. And
they need to run
these
more
third down situations. Yeah, right. In these third down situations, there's no reason we shouldn't be getting tight ends the ball. Like a 5-6 yard hitch to be able to get the 3-yard first down, get the 1-yard first down, but you also can get some extra yardage off that. Those are big guys that will fall forward.
With regards,
and in the 1 second, in the Georgia Tech game, they got a fair amount of success with running some of those short and intermediate drag routes with like a guy like Chris Bell, and I think a couple other receivers got involved in doing that, and we haven't seen a ton of that since, if I can recall off the dome. So like, I would like to see, for starters on offense, if you're going to continue to run the ball as much as you are, no offense to Don Chaney, Isaac Brown needs to be the bell cow, period. And that's why I asked Jeff Brown about it in the weekly presser, and he said, like, yeah, we're conscious that he needs to get his touches. Okay, cool. Do it then. Like, I mean, because Isaac Brown and Don Chaney should not be getting equal touches right now.
And frankly, I think Keywan Brown should be getting more touches than Don Chaney at this point. Like, he's been very limited in what he's been able to see in opportunities this year.
And I don't know if
the kid
it's because
runs
of the
hard.
Yeah, he does run hard. I don't know if it's because of his injury or what, but I mean, if you have to take an extra week to get healthier, I'd rather you do that than go out there and play, not half-assed, but just play, hindered and injured, and
especially
not be able to do what you usually do.
Yeah, because a break isn't coming anytime soon either. Like, we still got 4 games left until our bye week. Like, take a week off so that you can be more productive in the future games. Because it's dangerous to assume. I'm assuming Don Chaney's still playing hurt because he did not look this slow in spring ball. He did not look this slow in training camp. So you have guys now. Granted, maybe the coaching staff doesn't want to rely on and trust youth that much, but you've got 3 damn good freshmen running back that you can rely on, and that can get you through a game against Virginia. Like, and as much as we talk about how Virginia's spooky, at the end of the day, we're Louisville, they're Virginia. You have 3 freshmen, you can survive a week.
And you should, and this could be a game to give them a lot more confidence to propel them through the rest of the season. I mean, giving him a lot of carries and making sure he gets the yards that he can get. I mean, over 100 is going to be huge for his confidence going. Knowing that he can do that against an ACC opponent week to week is huge.
And honestly, like, let Don rest up so he's fresh for the game against Miami next week, because he's going to be juiced up for that game.
Exactly. I'd much rather go for $150 against Miami than freaking Virginia.
Exactly. So I hope the staff, if Don insists on trying to play, reduce his role to allow him to heal up at least. But we've been talking a lot about some of the Louisville players. Let's talk a little bit about some of the players to watch on the Virginia side. So obviously, you're going to start with the quarterback, Anthony Colandrea. Kid is electric, regardless of whether it's good or catastrophically bad. Anthony Colandrea is one of the most fun players in college football to watch. Has been a lot more good than bad this year. Over 1,200 yards passing, 8 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions, and he has 2 rushing touchdowns as well. The other 2 guys that I really wanted to harp on was the running back tandem, Kobe Pace and Xavier Brown. That tandem has over 600 yards rushing on the season. And if there's one guy, and this is just a personal plea to the coaching staff. This is just me and you time. Don't let Xavier Brown beat us. This is a kid out of Lexington, and I'm sure that there is no one else on the planet that he would love to have a huge game against than us. So, Coach Ivy, Coach English, Coach Braum, please, not him. Anyone else.
I hope somebody has that on their TV and they're like, God, Keith is just
so ugly.
Glad I don't have my 3D glasses on.
Right, yeah. I didn't actually realize that he was from Lexington, so yeah.
Yeah. Young kid he's explosive too. Like, that kid, I believe he put up a nearly 200-yard rushing game this season. And now it's going to bug me. I know he had a huge game this year because I remember doing it during the ACC segment and him not having a
Yeah,
touchdown
he
despite
went
200
for
yards.
171 on 9 carries against Coastal.
Yeah, and I mean, Coastal's not a scrub team either. Like, they're not a P4 team, but they're pretty solid G5 squad.
Yeah.
So,
Keith, this isn't going to make you feel any better. You know who Virginia's highest graded offensive player is?
Is it Xavier Brown?
Xavier Brown. I checked their defensive grades too, and he's their highest rated player. Period. So,
for Louisville fans, he's like their Isaac Brown. Like, he's so fast and explosive. Like, he scares me. So I hope
like Isaac, but Xavier, because they're both Browns.
So there are a few other players on the team, but I don't want to control the segment. Matt, Vince, any particular individuals you're on the lookout for?
I mean, Tyler Neville's definitely someone to look out for, just because with Tyree on the mend and with Terrell Harris maybe a little bit questionable, that Virginia is definitely not going to want to put all of the pass catching load on Malachi Fields. So this is definitely a game where I expect Tyler Neville to have like a heavy role in the passing offense, and even the running backs as well, because I know Kobe Pace, he's kind of been their change of pace type of back, and he's actually done a pretty good. You're welcome. He's actually done really well in terms of like being a pass catcher and getting involved in that area. So I would go with either Neville or Pace as guys to kind of watch out for.
Who's their punter? That's who I'm watching out for, because he's going to be playing a lot this game.
All right, well, the elephant in the room, the one guy that we haven't yet mentioned, who is probably their biggest threat all around, is Malachi Fields. Like, massive wide receiver, built like a brick shit house.
The big guy?
Yes, as former coaching staff would scout him, he's their big guy. I believe he's like 6'4", 220, big wide receiver, talented kid. They use him a ton. Get the ball to him in the passing game. They create a lot of ways, like with jet motion or wildcat formations, to get him the ball in the running game as well. What's the old Simpsons quote? Everyone should be asking where Fields is. If Fields has always got the ball. If Fields isn't on the screen, everyone's asking, where is Fields?
Oh my gosh. Simpsons got me. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not just, or since you threw that reference in there, they did a series finale episode, and they really, for a second there, I was like, are they done? Did somebody get canceled? But it was just a bit. So keep going.
Yeah.
And we've been showing the offensive side a lot of love. A couple of guys on the defense. Matt, you mentioned that Antonio Clary is likely going to be out of this game. Couple of defensive players, Chico Bennett Jr., veteran defensive end, another guy just built, like, if you just looked at the dude, you'd say, oh, this dude is a professional football player.
He's got to be first or second team all name.
Oh, absolutely.
So just huge, well put together dude. Like, in the games I've watched, he's given the offensive tackles. He's been matched up with hell the entire game. And it seems like a guy that you try to scheme around. And then James Jackson, we gave a lot of love to Georgia Tech's Efort for middle linebacker aesthetic. James Jackson, similar boat. Kid's a bona fide thumper who also has shown some proficiency in getting after the passer this year. As a Mike backer, he's picked up a couple of sacks. So a couple of guys on the defensive side to watch out for. And we've sort of had a little bit of conversation around it, but Vince, what are some of the major keys to the game for you that we haven't already talked about, like getting Isaac Brown the ball?
Yeah, seriously. Offensive line play, 100%. I mean, you mentioned the pass rush, the tackles. It's going to be a huge game for those guys. Same for the running back and the Department of Pass Protection, because he also kind of falls into that category as well. That's the front I'm going to be watching. D-line for sure. I mean, the game is completely won up front. If we can establish, control on, their side of the football, on both sides of our football, then I think we should be fine. Secondary as well, them communicating is going to be huge. And I mean, I guess in this case, under communicating because we're simplifying things.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to word that one, but definitely secondary, man. I mean, it's gonna be a big game for this team, and we all expect them to win, right? But it's just like at the end of the day, it's a 4-1 team. Virginia, we've struggled with almost every year. I was a part of Louisville football in some shape or fashion, and 2 of those years had a
Especially
Heisman
in
Trophy
Charlottesville, yeah.
winner. Exactly, and 2 of those years had a Heisman Trophy winner. So it's like I don't know. This game will always make me feel uncomfy. Virginia always makes me uncomfy.
Matt, you have anything?
Yeah, and on the defensive end, there's a couple other guys to note. Jonas Sanker. I know Antonio Clary, he's their leading tackler, but Jonas Sanker, he's second in tackles, and he's actually voted to the preseason All ACC team. I'm pretty sure he got some All ACC accolades last year as well. He's really good. I'm pretty sure he's the one who actually got the scoop and score to really put Virginia over the top in the Boston College game. So he's someone that Tyler Shuck needs to have like a read on at all times. And I never really like paid attention to this until our buddy Keith Wynn pointed it out. Debo Jones is at Virginia.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that.
I hope this isn't one of those times where a former Louisville player makes a big play against Louisville.
I know.
Because we have a tendency of those.
I'd rather Debo Jones score a game-winning pick six than Xavier Brown blow us up and they win that way.
If I had to pick to lose, that would be the way to lose. But I mean, I'm not over here game picking to lose.
Yeah, but
I hope Debo makes a good tackle and he gently lands our player onto the ground and picks him up and pats him on the butt.
After we get a 17-yard gain on a 3rd and 9.
Yes.
That's the thing. He hasn't really been super active. He's only played in 2 games and has just 24 defensive snaps logged. So I'm not really sure.
You were about to say 24 tackles. I was like, holy shit.
No.
This kid needs to be on the field.
Like, he hasn't been like a huge factor of their defensive game plan, which is kind of surprising.
Right.
Because he was a really, like, I don't want to say like a core piece of the defense, but like he was like a factor in the linebacker rotation when he was here.
Yeah. I mean, he would definitely, he would be in contention to be a starter if he was still here. I would say that. Or he would at least be competing for some time at this point.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, can you defend the pass? All right, Debo, you're in.
Yeah.
Do you move your feet 3 yards when the ball is snapped?
Oh man, I know exactly what play you're talking about. And yep. So, but this definitely has all the makings of a game that can really shape the Louisville season. Like if you drop this game, that's 3 in a row, and now you're getting ready to come home and play Miami, who's coming off a bye. You've sucked all the momentum out of the fan base.
Yes, and no one will show up if we lose to Virginia,
if we drop this and we're 3 down. Yeah, you're not getting casuals out to buy tickets to this.
I would expect people to show up to that, but I just wouldn't. I was part of that 2018 team. I would not expect people to show up and watch that product.
Yeah, and if you lose this game, I hate to draw parallels to that team, but like
let's pump the brakes.
I'm just saying, if you lose this game, then you got to face Miami, and they're beatable, but they're still talented.
Brother, we barely beat Western and Indiana State that year. This team steamrolls those teams.
I'm not saying like it's going to happen, but I mean, like if you start really going on a losing streak.
Yeah.
Like we don't have an easy schedule lined up. Like
they already got us beat. They got 3.
It's real easy but they've only got 2 FBS wins. So
whatever.
But no, like this is a game where like as much as people like to say momentum's not a real thing, it's not measurable, like this is a momentum shifting game. Like can you finally get off the mat after getting your butt kicked 2 weeks in a row? Or if you do lose a 3rd game in the row, like obviously I would be pissed off and would show blame if the players chose like, okay, lay down and die, season's over, and just sleepwalk through the next 6 games after Virginia. But like, it's not something out of the realm of possibility if you blow this.
I want
So
to know, like, if that does happen, Keith, and we do drop this game, I want to know how many guys, one, end up opting out, sitting out, injured, things like that. How many of those we end up seeing, and how many guys kind of start dropping off like flies? How many of these new transfer portal guys that you see hopping in all the time, like the portal's not even open right now, right? Not Keith,
Right, yeah.
like,
no, not even portal guys, but like, and granted, everyone's situation's unique, but if you drop this one and it becomes apparent that this season is not going to be contending for anything of note, does the staff then start to, okay, let's utilize some of this youth. Let's see what we've got here and start to ramp things up for 25. And like you talk about players like starting to sit it out, like one of the ones that would terrify me if they did choose to do that, like Tyler Shuck and Ja'Cory Brooks, like I think they've both put enough on tape to like appeal to at least get workouts with NFL teams. And like, if you're Shuck, that's life-changing money potentially. Even just being a day 2 NFL draft pick and making the squad as like a backup quarterback, like, because he's shown he's an NFL caliber ball player. It's just the question everyone had this offseason was if can he stay healthy? Can he stay healthy?
Right. Yep.
Yeah, he's done that. Why risk
so far
it?
he has. Yeah, exactly.
Why risk it on a team that's not going to make it? So now, again, we're jumping a whole lot of steps before we get there.
We're really letting the snowball roll here.
Yeah, if this is if things get bad. We're not that bad, and frankly, I don't think things are going to get bad.
I don't.
But while we're talking about what we think, it's time to roll it into the predictions segment, brought to you by insert sponsor here. Yeah, we can have multiple sponsors. It's okay. Don't be afraid. Come on over. It's great. So far the records on the year, I'm at the bottom of the table with a 2-3 record. Jacob and Vince are tied for second at 3-2, and Matt, being the lone dissenter last week, stretched out into the lead, unfortunately. Now with a 4-1 record. So with that, Matt, the line is currently Louisville minus 7.5 points. Some sports books, you can find it at -7. Personally, I like the better odds at 7.5, and I like a hook, so we have winners and losers. So we're going with the hook. Matt, you get to pick first.
So, like, just based on how much yardage that Virginia has given up through the air, I want to pick Louisville to cover here, but they've kind of lost the benefit of the doubt in terms of like their organization and their communication skills at this point. And now it's in a prove it mode for me. If you're Louisville, you have to prove multiple games in a row that this is not who you actually are, when like the evidence suggests that this is something that you are as a team. This is something that we have to take into account. So as much as I want to pick Louisville to cover, I'm picking Louisville to win, but I'm picking Virginia to cover. In fact, in my prediction, I have them eking out a 28-27 win. Yeah.
Now, before more of the picks go on, any injury updates that the staff has given, or because you didn't have specific players in mind, they didn't disclose?
That question made me laugh. So the way he responded made me laugh so hard.
Yeah.
And since you're not gonna mention anybody else,
we got a lot of guys banged up, so you'll have to be more specific. I was just like, damn, he's good at this.
If I speak, I'm in big trouble.
Yes. Good call.
Okay, so nothing that can get out yet. Gotcha.
Yeah, pretty much.
So UVA is getting 7.5. That's where we're at.
Yep.
Well, while Vince deliberates, Jacob Lane, we reached out to him and he struggled and had a very thoughtful back and forth discussion, could not quite make up his mind. And eventually, even the strongest willed card fan succumbs to disbelief. He also took Virginia and the points.
Man, that's what I was thinking too. But
man!
For an anomaly, I'm going to take the Cards for just for points purposes. I don't know. I'm more leaning towards you guys, gut feeling and everything. More leaning towards the 7.5 with Louisville, still winning, but it being a way closer game. But just for points purposes and to hopefully try and get one over on Matt and Keith and Jacob, we'll go with the Cards.
Gamesmanship, love it.
Well, a little bit of foreshadowing there with Vince's pick, talking about my options.
I could have just screwed myself right here for the rest of the year and could be doing a freaking combine.
A lot. There are a lot of very, very talented players on this Virginia team. But Louisville has the best quarterback Virginia's going to see, at least up to this point this year. Louisville has the best wide receiver Virginia is going to have seen. Louisville has Isaac Brown, has Keywan Brown in the backfield. And frankly, as much shit has been talked about this offensive line, I hope that they should be coming out with a point to prove. Like, they should be given their fucking A game this week, because essentially your masculinity has been questioned all week. Are you going to continue to let defenses bully you like this all year? As much as I like Chico Bennett on the edge, I don't think he's as good as the edge rushers we saw for SMU, and damn sure not as good as the edge rushers we saw at Notre Dame. I too am going with the Cards, giving up the 7.5 on the road. So I'm riding with my friend Vince Lococo here. So put me down for the Cards.
We could be going down together in a big ship, just like the violinist with the Titanic. Thank you, just right here.
So to recap, that's a 2-2 split. Jacob and Matt taking the Who's and the points. Me and Vince taking the Cards, giving up the points. So for those of you who have made it this far, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of From the Pink Seats podcast. Don't forget, like the video, tickle that subscribe button, leave a comment. What are your picks for the game? Who do you think are some key players? Did we miss anything major that happened in the last 24 hours?
Why do you hate John Mayer?
Do you want us to actually talk about ongoing things like recruiting? Because I made an intentional effort to avoid that today.
That's a different discussion entirely.
Because I did not want to pull out my soapbox.
And your meme was hilarious. The way you put that together was so swiftly with speed and everything that was so funny.
So with that being said, big thank you for tuning in. Like, subscribe, comment, leave a score update. What's the Yankees-Royals score right now as you watch?
My phone literally died in the middle of this podcast.
So it is.
No. Let the commenters do it, Matt.
Oh, yeah.
Leave a comment telling us who won the game. Make fun of Vince if the Royals end up pulling out that win.
Why do you all want pain for me? I already have to relive this 2003 World Series through a Netflix documentary that I'm going to watch because it's going to be good. And it's just going to, you all hate me.
That is very good. I love 4 days in October. I'm sorry, Vince. It's a great 30 for 30.
Yeah, great. Cool.
Visit our friends over.
For everyone.
Visit our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Promo code Pink Seats if you haven't yet. With that, that's Matt McGavic. That's Vince Lococo. I'm producer Keith, and as always, go Cards. Vince, man will throw hands with just about anyone under the sun, but there's one thing that terrifies him: medical expenses.
I am an American.